Well, there's no way that this ends poorly.
You're all insane.
Just side note, before I even begin this video, I just saw Black Christmas, and this video is a bit of a quickie. Let me know what you think of the format. I'm not entirely sold on it yet. I'm just trying to try new things, so let me know if this doesn't work for you. Keep the comments civil. I know that a lot of you are not going to agree with me on my opinion about this, but, you know, I just want to put some conversation out into the air. It's all in the name of positivity, so just take it as such, and let's get started. Chapter 1. An Introduction. I am, by definition, a feminist. That doesn't mean that I'm running around burning bras, because that'd be weird. That means I'd be like stealing people's bras, and that would be kind of a dick move. Anyway, it's not something I shove in people's faces or craft fancy petitions about, but per Wikipedia, feminism incorporates the position that societies prioritize the male point of view, and that women are treated unfairly within those societies. And I agree. While we are very close as a society to equalizing the positions of men and women, we aren't quite there, and certainly not past that point. Work must be done, and art has a big ol' hand in conveying the problems that work is meant to solve. Much like how Carpenter tackled Reaganism, it's up to a new generation of feminist filmmakers to help work out our societal woes. Of course, that doesn't preclude me from being critical of feminism. Even within Black Christmas itself, I did find that the film could layer things on a bit thick, which is kind of the point, and, well, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Feminism, like all sociopolitical viewpoints, can be used in unfair, even evil instances. Much like capitalism, socialism, and the fucking hippie movement, whatever example you want to make, if it's a socio-political movement, then it's probably been used for some bad shit. And look, I don't seek out feminism in my media, and I don't need overt politics in my horror. But I'm not opposed to them. Politics and horror go hand in hand, but those hands need not always remain together. In the case of Black Christmas, these hands are firmly clenched, and I entered the theater knowing that would probably be the case. Because, as we'll get into, it's nothing new, man. Chapter 2. Okay, fine, I'll review the damn thing. This video is not a review, but in the interest of being totally transparent, here's what I think of the 2019 Black Christmas. Is it a one-to-one remake? No, but that didn't really bother me. The 2006 Black Christmas, or Black Xmas, is only superficially a remake and employs next to none of what made the original so good. If I were to negate points due to a lack of similarities, I'd be a big ol' hypocrite, because not only do I really like the 2006 version, I also love movies like Prom Night 2, a sequel that bears absolutely no resemblance to the original, and The Fly, a remake that adds a whole in-your-face AIDS metaphor to its schlocky premise. And frankly, I don't even know that any of that matters, because every movie should be treated as its own thing. No one's ruining your childhood by remaking a slasher movie you like as a feminist B-movie about an evil fraternity cult. You can still just go watch the original Black Christmas. It's still out there. Right now it's on Shudder. It's dope as hell. Joe Bob Briggs will introduce it for you. It's fucking dope. Now regarding this movie, Imogen Poots is absolutely gangbusters in this. She plays a survivor of rape who is forced to live with what happened while those around her openly mock and don't believe what she went through, something that plenty of women can probably relate to. The other actors are really good as well, but to be totally honest, I can't remember their names offhand. That's not a reflection of them, that's just my dumb brain. The central plot is schlocky and kinda dumb, but that's also my cup of tea. Your mileage may vary. There's a magical cult, there's this weird bust that leaks out black liquid, and a very, very large chunk of the film is spent on college students debating feminism. Again, mileage may vary. That appeals to me because I like socially conscious dramas and I like schlocky horror movies, so if you put the two together, that's pretty much my jam. So overall, I liked Black Christmas. It's probably third out of all of them, if only because the original is so well done and classic, and the 06 version is too entertaining to not place in second. But it's a close race, and given the opportunity, I could totally see myself programming a triple feature. And I'd enjoy myself too. I think I would watch all three and be pretty chill the whole time. As far as similarities go, Takal and co-writer April Wolf do keep parts of the old skeleton around. The girls do receive a modern equivalent to the original's dirty phone calls, a large chunk of the film takes place in and around a sorority house, and murder is certainly had. References are made to more specific elements like the iconic first death from the original and that fun unicorn bauble, but those are mostly less successful. There's also an Exorcist 3 homage that others didn't like, but I enjoyed quite a bit, if only because it shows that Takal and Wolf really do love the genre. Also, I'm total trash for that movie, so there we are. I'm not totally immune to fandom.
What made the original Black Christmas so exciting was how complex and interesting and fun the female characters were, and so it was important to me to make a movie that was just as scary as the original, just as exciting and thrilling and chilling, but also, sort of showed what it was like to be a young woman in 2019.
Based on other interviews and Wolf's own article in the December 2019 issue of Fangoria, it's obvious whether you're watching the movie or reading the writer's own version of events that they loved the original Black Christmas and wanted to do something thematically similar but structurally different with the property. As far as I'm concerned, there's no harm in that, especially when you consider the greatest similarity of all: feminism. Chapter 3. Feminism in Horror. Uh-oh. Feminism and horror are fascinating bedfellows. On the one hand, feminism is often touted by horror fans as a staple of the genre. Look no further than our 5,000 Final Girls, who should really start a union at this point, by the way, or all the rape revenge stories about a young woman who's left for dead, but using the strength within her, overcomes and takes glorious vengeance on her enemies. Horror fans love that shit. But then you have fans who complain when the politics don't match their own views, or, heaven forbid, when those politics make them uncomfortable. Often, they're even one and the same. It's a fascinating dichotomy in that the fandom tends to be equal parts open and close-minded, depending on various factors. But that's a video for another day. Let's keep this short. In the original Black Christmas, feminism is a massive component. I'm going to steal a paragraph from a blog article titled Black Christmas and the Horror of Being Female in a Patriarchal Society from last year, before Black Christmas 19 was even in pre-production. As the final girl, Jess gets the most blatant storyline about bodily autonomy. She's pregnant and she doesn't want to keep the baby. Despite intimidation from her boyfriend Peter, she stands her ground. She doesn't want to marry Peter, and having the baby means giving up her dreams. While this is a blatant feminist statement by being so pro-choice, it also makes Jess a target for both the killer and her controlling boyfriend. Perhaps it's because she's so self-assured that she makes it to the end, but even then, she's not safe. The killer is never caught and she's left alone in the house while he waits for his opportunity. The women in Pi Kappa Sig are failed at every turn when they look for help, a metaphor for how society in general turns a blind eye to the violence that happens to women when they can't be controlled. I bring up the original and Jess's character because Imogen Poot's character Riley is similarly conflicted, albeit with a more overt problem. How does she handle the judgment of others, and of remaining in close proximity to her abuser? It's a scary thought, and one that Black Christmas spends quite a bit of time on. Not unlike the original Black Christmas, which also spends a lot of time on a very feminist issue.
I want us to have a baby.
Peter, I can't.
Oh, Christ, Jess.
Hell, it's basically the reason everyone thinks Peter is the killer in the original. But hey, once he's down for the count and Jess is apparently safe and sound, we find out that the killer is still in the house. And just because Jess has gotten rid of one toxic male presence doesn't mean she's safe from another. Slasher movies began with a truly feminist piece of work, quickly became mostly pseudo-feminist excuses for TNA, and now we have the second remake of that seminal work, which itself deals with feminism in a far more direct way. And the direct approach is the point. It's time to stop pretending these things don't exist or sweeping them under the rug. It's time to come out and say that being a misogynistic piece of shit is just not okay. Side note, I am ignoring a lot of great feminist horror from before and after Black Christmas for the sake of time and because it really bears no relevance when criticizing the film by itself. Suffice it to say that these movies do exist, and if enough people watch this video, then maybe I'll explore further. My primary point here is that if your main gripe with Black Christmas 2019 is that it is overtly political, well, so is the original. The biggest difference is that this one is making a point about being overt. In short, it's a movie about rage. Chapter 4. Fucking stupid marketing. Black Christmas's trailer was a pile of dog shit. That's pretty much uncontested. Perhaps my biggest problem with it is that it does spoil large chunks of the movie while also giving audiences the wrong impression of what exactly Takal is doing. The trailer gives forth the impression that these are women without character. They see a threat and don't bother cowering or screaming like a normal person, but instead act in superheroic ways. This is not the case. In fact, the women in the film only take an offensive stance for roughly 5 to maybe 8 minutes of the runtime. They otherwise act much in the same way as any other horror heroines would, with some added dialogue, taking on misogyny of course, which happens to be the central premise. Honestly, I'd have liked to have seen more righteous vengeance from these women. It's a fun finale, but it's fleeting compared to the rest of the film, which is equal parts standard issue slasher and college drama. I'd even say that if your main gripe with this movie is that it spends too little of its time on the horror element, sure, That is a very real criticism to be had, and in no way do I think your opinion is wrong. I just happen to find the character moments more enjoyable, which really just comes down to different tastes. Regarding the twist about the cult, obviously I went in with that knowledge, but the film lets the audience in on that secret fairly early. I do wish they'd kept Cary Elwes under wraps because his villainy is written to be a bit up in the air, but what you gonna do? There's also one shot in the trailer that's completely doctored to not give away another twist, and it's really so silly that you kind of have to see it to believe it. It's like the Get Out twist, but for dummies, and I'm okay with that. I collect Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays, I love stupid junk, it's whatever. Oh, and that group of gals that busts in, weapons drawn in the trailer, that's in there, but only one of them is the main character. The others are barely in the film and are simply recruited for the final standoff, and maybe bigger spoilers on this one, the subtle joke there is that they're all final girls who basically went through the same problem that same night and then banded together. And I love that, that's fun. Chapter 5. So what's it all about? I'm going to steal from Twitter on this one because the horror guru puts it about as succinctly as possible. What the movie's partially about, albeit in a very in-your-face way, is how systems like fraternities can and often do instill toxic attitudes in even the most good of people, who then go out into the world to spread those toxic gospels and reinforce those systems. Which, yeah, we've been talking about how bad fraternities are for decades. Even super rapey male nerd ego trip Revenge of the Nerds understood that. And not to get too spoilery again, but the film even makes a point about how not all men are evil rapists. Sometimes they're meek to the point of suspicion. Sometimes they don't know how to get their opinion out without offending feminists. I know, I've been there, and plenty of men watching this probably have too. It's super easy. In the end, Black Christmas 2019 is about tackling the problem of misogyny head on and with anger, rather than sitting back and just letting it happen out of some worry that you might be offensive or cause discomfort. Discomfort is the point. Unfortunately, this has apparently resulted in a lot of people being confused about that very premise and, of course, whining about it on the internet like a bunch of babies. Of course, they could also just be easily offended. Maybe they're just snowflakes. I don't know. If you can still, go see Black Christmas. Support horror, and support socially conscious horror at that. If you're uncertain or critical of the marketing, just know that so was I, until I actually watched the damn thing and recognized just how much in common with the original it really had.
Get out. Go. Go.